Lead Well, Live Whole, the podcast where leadership meets life. Your host, Michael Sirmon, is here to help you rise above the noise, lead with purpose, and live with clarity. Let's get to it.
Welcome back to Lead Well, Live Whole, the podcast where leadership meets real life. Over the last several weeks, you've heard me talk a lot about the Eagles in my life. And one of the Eagles is a gentleman named Larry Kerr. I met Larry back in 2011, and it was one of those divine meetings that just had that transformational effect upon my life. I've learned a lot about leadership from Larry. I've learned a lot about the element of coaching and encouragement. So for me, Larry is a strategic genius. He has the ability to pull a team together and guide them. And I promised him I would not brag on him too much. And I'm really not bragging at this point. I'm just trying to be honest with you. So, Larry, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Michael. I don't know who that guy is you're talking about there, but you were very kind. And I certainly appreciate it. And I do remember when we first met in 2011. Time really flies by, but I appreciate being here today. Your podcast is inspirational. I've enjoyed listening to each one of the sessions, and you're just doing a great job. And I could be more excited for you and proud of you spreading the word on the good leadership. So thanks a lot.
No, thank you for that. You know what? I've really enjoyed the sessions where I've had people that I'm talking with, and it's not just me droning on. So, the last few I've had Tammy on talking about encouragement, and that was so exciting that we actually launched a separate podcast called Every Mile with You, and we had our debut episode go out this week where we talk about our 38 years of life together with all of our traveling, and we spent a lot of time on the road, and it's just fun and exciting. And, we're proud of the 38, but Larry, you and Penny, 41 years. Good job, man.
Yes, 40 years. It's been good. I've been very blessed. And I know Tammy and we both outfronted our coverage most. We were very fortunate. Very blessed.
Oh, we are for sure. Yeah, I heard that Penny has actually been nominated for sainthood. So that was.
That's right, Mike. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
She deserves it.
No, she does. She does. So no, you have a tremendous family, right? I've got to meet your son Jensen, and I've met your beautiful wife. I heard a lot about your daughters, but I had never met them. So I think the family really is. They say a lot about who you are, right? Your family, they admire you, they respect you from what I see and what I know. And, that leadership starts at home. You and I, we've talked many times, and leadership isn't just something you do once you put your hat on at work, right? It's who you are, it's your character, it's your core. And you are one of those Eagles, right? That has, you've worn many hats, but you stayed consistent with who you are through that process, right? I think you started off as aftermarket manager, wasn't it? In that area, and then you made your way to CEO, and you've touched a lot of people in between. But my question really is, first question for you is, when you look back at your life and your very successful career, what were the early signs that you were wired to lead?
Well, let me just say that I always try to strive to be the guy on Monday through Friday that I was on Saturday and Sunday, meaning I wanted to be consistent in the way I walk,
Right.
And live every day. So, every day that ends in Y matters. But early on, I was just interested in leadership. I'm the oldest of three boys. My dad was the oldest of a family of 5. My mom was the oldest of a family of 8.
Wow.
And you know, they didn't say I had to be a leader. My dad told me often that, "Hey, you're the oldest one. You need to take care of your brothers," because that was what he did. So I just had an interest in it. I remember I had a friend, and his dad was a veterinarian, and I just really admired how he ran his business. And so I was just at a very young age, even in elementary school, I would just pick up on that.
Right.
And then my dad helped put some leadership into me. But I went to him one day and I said, "Hey, I need a job. I need to earn some money." And he goes, "You want me to help you?" Well, that's before I knew don't ask your dad to help you find a job. But
Yeah.
so he fixed me up with my uncle, who was a bricklayer. I
Oh.
was a laborer for a bricklayer for about 3 or 4 years.
Mm.
And but I mean, in George, down in South, at that time, we moved from Central Arkansas to South Louisiana, down in Baton Rouge.
Right.
And in Baton Rouge, I found, or in South Louisiana, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, man, I really like you,"
Right.
and they're going to breathe into you, which is great, but it's going to be very hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And my uncle helped me out so much, and he just taught me to look ahead and do all kinds of things. So just at a young age, I had an interest, just migrated that way. Uh, I could go on a little bit. I hope that answers your
No, it
questions.
does. That absolutely makes sense. Yeah, I like your point, right? That somebody's going to breathe into you, but it's going to be hard. And I think that a lot of us and a lot of people, especially in business and in life in general, miss the point or the idea that change is often difficult, right? Change, you have to get uncomfortable before you move, before you're motivated to move to that next level. And you know, I have found that a lot of people that want to get there don't want to do the work to get there. And yeah, I, like you, one of my first jobs was hauling hay and hauling watermelons. So I never had to haul brick up and down like you did. But I've loaded many a truckload, you know, semi trucks full of watermelons. You know, and it's just standing in a field throwing them, and if the guy next to you wasn't paying attention, your hands are down the middle of the bull nettles. So yeah, so I do appreciate that, and I understand it. Well, I know just from having worked with you and for you that you learned those lessons of leadership well. But you know what, the book, one of my books on Eagle leadership, right, was dedicated. You're one of the ones that's dedicated to, and I know you've read it. So, but when you look at that term eagle, because I always refer to you as an eagle, what does that mean to you in context of leadership and life in general, if anything?
Well, Michael, I just, you know, I like, it's an animal. A bald eagle is one of the most majestic animals. I mean, it's so majestic that our country has it as its, you know, as its symbol.
Right.
And it's beautiful, and it soars really high. But what you miss when you see that is you just miss all the hard work and the perseverance
You're right.
and the never quit
Yeah.
and the grit that it takes to accomplish what the eagle accomplishes.
True.
And so that I think, you know, by doing right things right, by working hard, by putting others first, those are the type of things that actually create the good leader that people will want to follow and that people will want to trust.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Uh, but with that, to keep on that same topic or that same theme there, you have your career, you've gone across several industries, you definitely have walked across a bunch of different cultures and, ups and downs of economic climates. But if you look back, or even where you are right now, can you think of one pivot point that made you step back and rethink your whole approach to leadership?
Absolutely. There's a lot of pivot points, right? Because we keep getting better every day.
Right.
Leadership's a journey. If you're dedicated to learning, you're dedicated to listening, and you're going to keep improving.
Yeah.
Because you just continue to refine. But a big pivot point for me is, I have to say that I always tried to have a positive attitude, and I always tried to work hard. And I did look for opportunities to lead, but I was stuck in a fixed mindset and a negative mindset. And what created that was perfectionism.
Right.
I just didn't want to mess up.
That's from being
Mess up today.
That's from being the oldest child. I'm married to an oldest child. I know what that's like.
Could be. But, it wasn't until college that I started developing a growth mindset, having some confidence.
Right.
Started listening to Zig Ziglar. He was one incredible person. But after I went to work, I was at work probably, I think this maybe 6 years, 7 years. And we had moved from New Orleans to West Texas to Houston.
Oh, wow.
And I was running the repair center.
Right.
And we just, it was pretty chaotic. And I had a shop supervisor that was a really knowledgeable guy. And he was a great man, and he was a really good guy, but he was not very good at organization. And everything had to run through him.
Right.
Well, I wanted to keep his knowledge. I wanted to keep his expertise. I wanted to honor him, but I just needed some other approach. When I stumbled into, the Lord provided. I was sitting by a consultant. He was asking me what was going on, and he asked me if I ever considered a self-directed workforce.
Right.
I said no. So we started working towards that, and we converted to a self-directed workforce. We divided up into teams.
Right.
We didn't tell them, which is pretty innovative at the time. We didn't tell them when how you get your 40 hours in. You determine by the work in the shop when you need to do the 40 hours. You determine every Monday we'll talk about what's got to go through.
Right.
Here's your budget. Here's your goals. And man, we just radically transformed that plan.
Right.
And it took a while for people to believe and to learn the way we were serving customers, the way we were getting things out the door. It was just radical. And we had a guy, his name was Joe, and he repaired these valves. And Joe and I didn't get along at all. I mean, not at all. We just come from different sides. We had different viewpoints. And I called him in January, and I said, Joe, we don't get along, and we're going to take a new approach. And you have 1 year, and in 1 year, I want your sales to be here.
Right.
This is a shop repair guy.
Yeah.
I want your sales to be here. I want your margin to be here. Here's your budget. Here's your salesman. He's a route salesman. Here's your salesman. You two run the valve business, and I'm not going to say anything to you all year long, but on December 31st, if you have not met these sales and you haven't met the margin, then we're going to part ways.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, that's the deal I'm looking for. Because he was a taxi driver back in the day up in New York, and loved it because he's his own boss.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, and it became apparent really quick, at the end of the year, they doubled sales.
Right.
Margin went up 10 points beyond what we asked him to do. His budget, he came in under budget on his costs, and he was the happiest guy ever. And not continue more stories about that, but I just learned that my job was to equip.
Yep.
My job was to hire the best people at the start. Give them the tools to get the job done and continually coach them and ask, how can I help you? And it was miraculous. Chaos went away. We exceeded our plans. It was just unbelievable what we accomplished. We went counterculture. We had permission to do it.
Right.
So that was big.
Yeah, that would be huge. I wish we'd have talked about that over the last 15 years. Because I had a similar experience, right? We're getting a self-directed team in place, and it was counterculture. And for mine, though, I didn't realize at the time how much it was dependent on me and on my style, because once I left, it slowly dismantled, and they went back to the more traditional, point and direct type culture. So did your self-directed team, did it thrive after you left, or was it dependent on your leadership?
No, totally dismantled.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
And that's, I've always thought that was the best way. But you have to run an organization with the people you had, and I just think very few people can really appreciate that.
Right.
And so it's not something people have to pull on that. You can't hardly push it.
It does, but it took a lot of trust on your part too, right? Because you're dedicating a year of productivity to this happening, right? And you're betting on it. You're betting on the long game, and that takes a lot of trust from you to the team, and a lot of trust from the team back to you to have their back. So
That's right.
yeah, but that does explain a lot, right? But watching you in the Tulsa tornado, Jerry's fires over the years, that was kind of your approach with him, right? Here's where we want to go. Here's the side, here's the end zone, and here's the sidelines, and just kind of tell me what you need. So
That's right.
And I've tried to emulate that a lot. Watching you, I picked up some of that, right? But it's more focused on, let's set the vision, let's set the goal, and then just get out of the way and help remove roadblocks. And you were really good at that. So as part of that, really, where I really saw you shine was when you were CEO at GD Energy, and there was a lot. Oil and gas in itself is just a very difficult industry because of all the ups and downs, and right, trying to anticipate what's going to happen, which normally doesn't happen. And so you end up having to do some short and long term betting. But then at GD, we also had the issue of leaving Iran and going with private equity and all of the challenges that came with that. And you had to make a lot of tough decisions. So in that, what did that teach you about courage or humility in leadership? Because I watched you go through that, and I understand some decisions you were making, and I'm not going to ask you your toughest one, but what did that teach you though about yourself and about your core character?
Well, let's just back up a little bit. You were part of an incredible run, 2009 to 2000.
Yeah, I've told him about the billionaire story,
and that was what a remarkable ride. We were all very young, and we just tried to do the next right thing, and it worked.
right?
We innovated, we hit spot on. We matched what the customer wanted.
Right.
So we led in innovation, we led in service, and we were rewarded for it. And it's really hard in the cyclical market to stay the course. I read a lot of leadership books and a lot of autobiographies. And the vast majority of these leaders in these books that's been hyper successful, they've had challenges in their career for sure. In some market pressures, absolutely.
Right.
But nothing like in a cyclical market that you'll find in oil and gas, and mining, and construction, and those type of things. That's a whole nother level.
Right.
So we had enjoyed a great run. And then the company went through some transitions, private, public, private. And so I had the opportunity to come back. And the reason that I did come back was, the unique opportunity to lead out front and to implement relationship leadership, positive leadership, servant leadership approach that we try to take.
Right.
And we had a great team. The challenge behind that was, again, cyclical markets and just the pressures of that. You can do all the right things, but when that market moves, it's tough.
Yeah.
And so you have to make a lot of really hard decisions. And you made a lot of good decisions, but what I learned is stick to who you are.
Right.
Stick. Nothing, absolutely nothing can overcome the importance of relationships. And that's how you win.
Yeah.
You win by loving your people. You win by encouraging your people. You win by challenging those people. And you win by enriching them and empowering them to get better. Because if you can raise up leaders will take you beyond any expectation that you put in front of them, if you can bundle that energy. So that's what it was so exciting. And I think you gotta, the old saying is, if you don't stand for something, then you stand for nothing.
Right.
Sometimes you have to stand for something, and you have to stand for what you believe in.
Right. And that the stand is never free, right? It's going to cost you something to stand. And I've watched you stand, and I appreciate the courage and the humility that I've seen. Right, during our heyday, I think we're honest. We got a little prideful because it seemed like whatever we did was succeeding, and we got a little over our skis a little bit. But I think you did a real good job of reeling us back in, right, and helping us to. I remember the campaign where we were going to, recapture our heritage, right? You did a really good job leading us through that and helping remind us of who we are, right? Because I think in leadership, right, you're not a leader if you're not creating other leaders, first of all. But at the same time, the only vision a team has is what the leader casts out and what they develop. And the ability to make it a concise story and then cast it out there in a way that people would understand and grab a hold of and want to be part of, right? That inspires us to aspire to something greater. I think that's unique in the greatest of leaders, right? And you're really good at that. And it's easy for us to talk about all the successes and the wins, but I think our best lessons are learned from the failures that we deal, that we have to encounter. And if you think back to your life, think back to something that was, if you would, right? And we didn't prep this, so I know you're getting caught by surprise with some of these questions, but when you think back at your life and think of those moments where it didn't turn out the way you wanted, or it went a totally different direction, what lessons did they teach you? That make sense?
Yeah, just to be a bit transparent here. There's been a couple of things in my life that I just really feared.
Right.
Absolutely, I don't like tornadoes, man. They scare me to death. But there's just things I don't like snakes either.
Right.
Look on TV, I don't like pictures of them. I walk by them in the zoo, I don't like snakes.
That's funny.
But there's been two things that I really feared in my life, and both of them happened.
Right.
Both of them happened to me, and I come out the other side stronger and better.
Right.
And after that, there's some things that I'd have to come to the table every day in my quiet time,
right,
in my faith, to center where I need to be centered every day. But those two things really built in me that, hey, we're going to be okay on the other side. And it also showed me that adversity it's going to happen. I mean, every day our schedule gets knocked off.
Right.
Every day we leave the house with a plan, and every day we encounter something, some to a greater degree than others.
True.
And this past weekend, I was talking to a gentleman, and we were talking about Philippians 4:13, and I can do all things through Him who strengthens me.
Right.
And we focus on I can do all things through Him, and that is absolutely true.
It is.
Without a doubt. But we forget who strengthens me. We get stronger through resistance.
Yeah.
We get stronger when we have to encounter adversity. And that, we don't want that.
Right.
That's why exercise is hard. We don't want that. But we get stronger through that adversity. And that is important. So, yeah, I've been laid off. I've been fired. But each time it come out better on the other side. I've been disappointed. I didn't get a promotion I thought I deserved.
Right.
Because I had a better promotion behind that.
Right.
I've taken steps back in my career several times. On the surface, it looks like, wow, man, he went backwards instead of forwards. But I took 2 steps back and 3 steps forward.
Yep.
And I'm glad I did. I don't regret any of that. So,
yeah, I've done the same. I write a daily devotional on my Facebook and LinkedIn, and the one this morning was actually about keeping your eyes on the shore, right? About sailors, they don't watch the waves, they watch the shore, and about Christ is our foundation, and He's that shore that that we should keep our eyes on, and I base that on Hebrews 12:2, which says, "Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith." And so I know exactly what you're talking about, right? Even when you're in a car, in the back seat of the car, when you shut your eyes, you start focusing on something else, then the rolling motion can make you sick. But it's when you keep your eyes around you and you understand that what's stable, then when those changes happen, when the turmoil comes, like we've all experienced and we will continue to experience, it helps us stay centered on who we really are. But I think that private time that you brought up, I think that's where a lot of people really miss it. And I spend a lot of time when I'm coaching people and counseling people, just telling them just breathe, just relax and breathe, because no matter how bad your mind thinks it's going to be, it's not going to be that bad. Right? There's very few things that are as catastrophic as we fear they will be. And I think Job went through that, right? Everything that he feared came upon him. And if we're not careful, we can allow our fears to cause us to pull back or begin to draw in and make decisions that are counter to our core. And it's tough sometimes to define and stand on your non-negotiables. But you have built a lot of really good teams in manufacturing, across industries, through the energy industry and you education for a while. But in all of those, what were your non-negotiables when you were building your teams? What were you looking for? And I'm asking this personally, right? Because I'm always looking to grow, and looking for, am I setting my standards right? But what were your non-negotiables when you were building a team?
Well, I get pretty excited, Michael, when you asked that question, and I was hoping you'd ask that, because it's so important to find. You'll hear coaches talk about finding our kind of guys,
right?
Our kind of gals. I mean, our kind of teammates,
right?
And what does that look like? Well, that I always wanted that person who could bring your lunch bucket to work.
Yeah,
who wasn't afraid to roll up their sleeves and go to work. So we had to work hard,
right?
But we also had an attitude to serve and to to just help others get better. So that was a good attitude. So we worked hard, we had a good attitude, and we were dedicated to persevere, right?
Right.
I mean, we just went to work. I was at a basketball tournament in the state finals, and you go all the way to the state semifinals and finals. And the one thing that every team has in common is they are a good team. They would have made it that far.
Right.
And one of the teams on their warm-up jerseys, it said, "Do work."
Right.
Do work. Just work. And so that's when I really tried to find a person that was the right fit for our team, who could work hard and contribute. So we tried to hire the person, not the paper.
Right.
Now, you can't be an engineer without an engineering degree. You can't be an accountant without an accounting degree.
Right.
You have to have some pedigree that gets you in the game. But once you start playing, it is all about working hard,
right,
attitude, and persevering through the hard time.
Right.
And I just, one of the things that we used to do a 3-year strategy review, you remember that?
Yeah.
And I've talked to you about this before, but we would do the 3-year strategy every year. And it's great to just reset.
Yeah.
But quickly we would transition to talk about how we're going to get that done. And we were always, we got fingers pointed at us because we were too transactional.
Right.
Well, every day you have to execute. You got to execute to drive to a destination. Your vision takes you to a destination. But it's what you do every day that makes that progress to that destination. And so I think working hard, being focused, is very critical.
Yep. Yeah. No, 100%. And through that, right, you build the trust, which is the foundation for everything, because you can toss the ball up, know somebody's going to catch it, and they're going to run with it. But you talked a lot there about the work and the process piece of it, which I know you, right? So I understand your drive for that. But I think aren't you a master black belt, Six Sigma master black belt? Okay. So right, which one? Congratulations on that. That's a lot of work. But that's also very process related. And you talked a lot earlier about the creativity and the agility in your approach and stuff. How do you resolve the dichotomy of that, right? Because you need people to soar and grow and explore. And I've talked about how you were very permissive in allowing us to challenge and take risk, right? Not stupid risk, but take risk. But the black belt that whole thought process is more process, step-by-step focus. So how do you balance those two?
Well, it is your daily process. I mean, if you follow sports, the next statement is just stick to the process.
Right.
So the process matters, but it's a daily process, Michael.
Right.
It's what you do every day. And you talk about Six Sigma. Really, Six Sigma is Lean Six Sigma, and it's eliminating waste.
Right.
Taking chaos out of the situation. Eliminate the waste, prioritize.
Right.
And then look at data and just analyze the data. And in Six Sigma, there's a lot of tools. But what we learned of all the sack of tools, there was still like 3 or 4 tools that you ran everything, all the filters through.
True.
And that was 80 to 90% of what needed to be done. So that in of itself, that's simple, right? It's called priority. It's called focus and keeping things simple. So I do think it boils down to what can you do every day to get better? And that's where when we had our core values and we boiled it down to 3 things.
Right.
And that was to get better every day. And today, we're not going to be the same as we were yesterday.
Yeah.
We called it innovation, but that's what that is. And then we're going to serve, and nobody's going to outserve us.
Right.
And then we're going to work together as a team because all of us is smarter than just one of us. So out of everything out there, we would tell our people, hey, if you forget everything, do these three things.
Right.
Be better today than you were yesterday. Find somebody to serve and help your brother.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good stuff. And I have actually lived those, and I've used those a lot, right? That out in West Texas, when, we had building that facility and trying to, working on transforming that to more of a 24/7 mindset. That was a lot of our battle cry was no one else serves us, right? Maybe difficult, maybe challenging. We may have never done it before, but you know what? It serves the customer, and it opens that door to allow us to be the solution to their problem. And we were rewarded for it, right? You that facility out there went from, it did triple in a year, just changing the obviously the footprint, but the mindset behind it as well. But
Can I, if it's okay,
Oh, absolutely.
say something there because that's a great memory. That we built a brand new facility, spent a lot of money,
Right.
made a decision to do it in 2014.
Right.
And everybody in the oil and gas business knows that 15 to 16 were very unkind
Right.
to the marketing. The Saudis had made a decision to capture share,
Right.
drop the price, and it really, it was a tough time in the U.S., in the U.S. markets. So they slowed down tremendously. And there was a big question mark of should we even proceed with building the new building?
Right.
But that was in the Permian Basin, and we made the decision that we're going to make a long-term bet.
Right.
And we made the right one by sticking to it. And you can look back now and say, well, no, Kent, that was pretty easy. But I remember us sitting together when there was no work coming through.
Right.
And we were, hey, what are we going to do? You were pushing brooms. Everybody was the cleanest facility ever. And you just opened the doors and told our customers, bring your truck in here and we'll do whatever you need us to do. And that was the beginning of serving to grow that business. And today, it's changed a little bit, but that business really did prosper a lot.
Oh, we did. I remember
when the market came back.
I remember we went from, traditionally we had 3 trucks a day. There was a lot of trucks. One day we had 28 trucks come through that day, just in one day, because we changed our mindset. And
but you also changed it because you had competitors come in and start trying to duplicate that. So you redefined what service meant in the Permian Basin.
Oh yeah, we had to though, but you allowed us to do that, right? You allowed us to be creative, and not just allowed us, but you expected it, right? And the team is going to stand up or follow your expectation, or as I like to say, right? They're going to lean into your vision, which sets your expectations and set your goals. And that's why it's so important for me that leadership is grounded on something, and it's not just, responding or transitioning daily based off of whatever the stimulation is for that day. And it's hard to make long-term decisions and paths while you're trying to deal with the short-term stimuli. So how do you, right? How do you keep a team balanced when you're trying to go through that? Because, part of it's protecting the team from the chaos. How do you personally, how do you approach that so that the team can focus on doing those 3 things they need to do, not have to, bounce to the clown music?
Well, first of all, you have to hire the right people,
Right.
that can persevere during the tough times. That we talked a little bit. It's you grow more when times are tough than when times are easy. And I like to say we for whatever reason, we get stronger eating bologna than we do eating filet mignon.
Yeah.
But so you have to hire the right people, and you have to spend a lot of time together to be committed that this is the direction that we're going.
Right.
We want to be the best in this. We want to innovate here. We want to make sure we're serving there. And that's where I think that I don't know what tomorrow holds. I know who holds tomorrow.
Right.
But I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I know who I want to be tomorrow. And I know what I want to work on tomorrow. I certainly can't control what's going to happen at the end of the year. And there's no way I can control what's going to happen at the end of 3 years.
True.
And so I have to be moving in a direction that's very positive. And I got to stick to what I got to do today.
Right.
And that's why I think today, we talked a lot about why today matters. And so I just keeping it simple, making sure you have the right team, and living together, working together, you'll stick to what you need to stick to.
Right.
And I just, that if you hire the wrong people, they're not going to hear what you say.
True.
You know, they're not going to be a team because, I mean, when we were behind closed doors, we weren't the friendliest bunch to each other.
No, but we trusted each other though. That's the thing, right?
That's right. We could talk to each other that way. And when we walked out of there, we were moving in a direction.
Yeah.
We were in one accord.
Yeah.
So that was important.
Yeah. I've said that many times where I've come out of a meeting, not just with this team, but just teams. And somebody's like, man, I cannot believe they did this or said that. And I'm like, yeah, but we know their heart, right? We understand their heart and where they're coming from. And a lot of those conversations we don't understand are either because of a failed expectation or to motivate us to do something else. But there's some of them that the person doesn't know what to say or how to say it. And it's kind of a fear or uncertainty based response, right? And I think that's where knowing the heart comes so important. Because I can get past the moment, right?
We like to say that we want good conversations around the supper table.
Right.
And by that, living to that, hey, what we mean is we want to lead the best we can every day.
Right.
And my goodness, Michael, you've been kind to me and bragging, but you know that I had numerous bad leadership days. And I wasn't the person that I wanted to be, and I certainly wasn't the person I was supposed to be. But I had stacked up enough good days.
Right.
That I built enough trust that I had latitude to get to next.
Yeah. It does. But
to your point where people go, why did he say that? I mean, he was out of line.
Right.
Kind of just hang in there. He's coming back around. That's so important.
Right.
When our people go home and they're sitting around the supper table and they're disappointed and they say, I've had enough. I'm quit. We need that spouse or that family member to say, no, you're going to give them a little bit more time.
Right. Oh yeah. 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 But yeah, cause I mean, I've heard that many times and, talking with Tammy and she's, talking about something that happened or something going on. And she's like, yeah, but that's not who they are. And I'm like, well, no, you are absolutely right. And which actually brings me to one of my next notes was about, faith, family, and personal values, right? So this kind of segued right into that. How have they shaped some of your professional decisions?
That's family shaped decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I spoke a little bit to that. I've been very fortunate that I had a great mom and dad.
Right.
I had a great grandparent foundation. I'm married well. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are just incredible. So, number one, I had to lead. I always felt like I had to lead properly because I had to go back to my dad and my father-in-law and go, I made a good decision.
Right.
I treated people well.
Right.
I grew up in a blue-collar family. We just went to work all my uncles went to work.
Right.
And so and then just my own family. I wanted to do what was right. And I spoke to that earlier, that I wanted them to be able to say, that's just my dad. That's who he is every day.
Yeah.
And he's good most days. There's some days he needs to improve on, but I just wanted I wanted them to be proud of the name on the back of their jersey.
Right.
And I felt like that happens every day.
Yeah.
And how do you get it right all the time?
Yeah. I like to refer to people like us as, what I call human. And we make mistakes, but the core is still there, because I'm with you, right? And we've talked over the years, right? I didn't have that foundation growing up, so I didn't have that sense of identity around who I was. So for me, it really was about what I learned from leadership through through the Bible and the stories and what I saw God do with people around me. But once I got married, Tammy really helped me identify who I was. And you put out or had us put up a poem on all of our walls that, for me, kind of cemented it, or kind of pulled it together, clarified it, I guess is the right phrase. And it was The Man in the Mirror. And I still, that is still one of my favorite. And I use that so many different times, because even before that, what I would tell people is I still have to look at myself in the mirror every night. And I have to go home to my family and they have to look at me. And if I can't stand behind the decisions that I made or the things that I've done in front of them, then how far have I really missed the mark? So that was a thing for me. And then it was part of that search for my identity. And Tammy and I, when we got married, we made an agreement that we would not do things when we were apart that we wouldn't do when we were together. And it made some tough decisions very easy, because yourself, when you're out and about doing different things, there's opportunities to do stupid crap sometimes. But it made it easier for me to say no, because I knew I was gonna give an account as it was happening, and even after the fact, not to her, but just between me and my commitment to my faith. So that made it easier for me. So I understand what you're talking about, right? You wanted the family proud of the name on the back of the jersey.
That's right.
So I really,
nothing good happens after 9 o'clock at night.
it doesn't. It does not. It does not. Yeah. So growing up, I remember raised by a single mom. As teenagers, my brother and I, we would go out. We didn't have rules, right? We didn't have the rules that said you had to be in by this time and no drinking, no drugs. We had none of those rules. We had one rule. It says, don't do anything to shame the family. And that was that was a blanket that kind of covered everything that we ever thought about doing. So, sadly, we wasn't always successful at it, but we tried. So, hey, so we can look you up on LinkedIn and we can see your impressive life and career. But what's one thing that you don't see on LinkedIn that you would say is critical to your success? And I think you've talked about it all, but I just want to kind of clarify that.
Look, Michael, I'd be nothing without the Lord.
Right.
I'd be nothing without my faith. The better I am centered upwards,
Right.
The better I'm grounded here. And I, by no means does that, I am not perfect by any means, and I mess up, and I don't live the life I don't want to live. I said things I wish I wouldn't have said, but being grounded in faith is something that may not come out on a resume, but I think is really important.
Yeah.
And being the person I want to be, a leader, a husband, dad person.
No, that makes sense. And I personally, I'm proud to have known you and to have you in my life, because I'm very careful about who I allow to pray for me or to uh, contribute to me, right? And I don't mean that pompously by any means, but there's a lot of traits that people have that you don't want in your life, and you're one of those that I saw far more of the heart and of the good that I wanted to bring in and incorporate into part of who I was. But even then, as you said earlier, right, you're not perfect. You've made some mistakes. And we have a lot of our listeners are kind of younger, up and coming type managers, or just people in general who are just striving to be better today than they were yesterday. So if you could go back and talk to your 30-year-old self, what one piece of advice would you give you?
Well, in that one piece, can I get some bullet points on?
This is, dude, I wouldn't know how to do it without Kerr math. So go ahead.
First of all, I want to get this in today, is that if you have your life in order, you minimize chaos, you're the person you're supposed to be, you're centered and balanced, have a good rhythm in the 16 hours that you're away from work.
Right.
In those 8 hours that you show up at work, you're going to be like the model. I mean, you're going to be fantastic.
Right.
You have to prepare to go to work. You don't work. Don't sacrifice 16 hours. And that's just like, yeah, some days you're going to work more than 8. Okay. But that's just the phrase. So with that, I'd absolutely say prioritize your faith.
Right.
And start with the firm foundation of reading the word. Always serve others. It's an honor to serve others. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's an absolute fact.
It is.
And if you can have everything in life you ever wanted, if you can help enough other people get what they want, I live that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that's absolutely true.
It is.
You've got to focus on others. We're not here to serve ourselves. We're here to serve others. And the last thing is just believe and have a gentle spirit and stay medium. And I didn't always succeed there.
Right.
But adversity's coming. And you have to grip to Philippians 4:5 and let your gentle spirit be known to all men. He's here. He's going to help you.
Right.
When I get scared is when I blurt out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I get nervous or I get embarrassed or I get my feelings hurt, it's when I blurt out. You don't have to. And I have to tell myself that every day.
Right.
But you don't have to. So it's going to be okay. But I do think that every day matters, and what you do today is going to have a cumulative effect and the compounding interest till tomorrow, next day.
Right. That's a good point. And that's what I was kind of going to earlier is we make some poor short-term decisions based off of fear or insecurity that do impact us down the road, which is why I'm an advocate for having a personal vision, having your personal mission statement, right? So it keeps you back to your core. When you have to make a decision, you don't know what to do, right? It either aligns with this or it doesn't align with that. And it sounds easier than it is, but I've seen you do it time and time again. I've seen you make decisions that you didn't like at that moment, but you knew it was the right decision as we went down the road. And so yeah, I've seen the good and the bad. But you know what? I will tell you, man to man, brother to brother, that the good far outweighed the bad any given day. I mean, I told you when I moved to Missouri, right, that the only way I would move back is move back for you, right? You inspires. And
That's right.
And I did, because you're the kind of leaders that I aspired to be, which means I needed to be around you, and I need to learn right from you. And I learned from you by watching you and hearing you and talking to you. But when you look at this next generation of leaders that are coming up, what do they need to be doing to prepare? Right? It's more. It's got to be more than just, hey, make the right decision today. There's some specific things, and I gave the same question to you several years ago when we talked about had our feed forward conversation. But what would you recommend that they're focused on right now with our current models, business models, and the society the way it's in chaos?
Yeah. First of all, don't be as scared as a leader to have a high standard of expectations.
Right.
It's okay to have high expectations of your people.
Right.
And there's some non-negotiables in here. Just the other day, Penny and I were flying, and we were in the United Club, and there was 2 children. They were running around, and they were loud and disorderly, let's say.
Right.
And then we left. They left before I looked down at the table they were sitting at. And they had crumbs and just, it was unbelievable that they left that mess, disrespectful actually.
Right.
So they didn't have a very high expectation in the club for their children.
Right.
But they happened to be on the same flight as us. And I thought, well, here we go. And they were only 2 rows in front of us. And they were model citizens on the plane ride. Why? Because the expectation was held high. You're going to sit in your seat.
Right.
And I just thought that to say it's okay to have a high expectation. But it's about I keep coming back to every day. And are you growing spiritually, and mentally, and physically, and relationally every day?
Right.
Do that. I mean, find time to focus in your quiet time. Don't be afraid to read books. We're only as smart as the last chapter that we read.
True.
And if we're not preparing ourselves in the 16 hours away from work to serve those while we're at work, to be in good condition. So eating right and exercise is just really important to prepare ourselves to serve.
Right.
And then who are you encouraging? Who are you mentoring? Who are you breathing into every day? And to just be aware of other people to see for those opportunities that you can encourage somebody. So spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally, every day, I think is important. And I think I spoke to that several times today. I just can't deviate.
Right. No, I agree. And we talked about that the other day, right? Our message stays consistent over the years, right? It'll have different flavor, maybe different color, but it's still the same core message. And I've seen you live that out, and I've seen you encourage that, and I've seen you coach that with your teams. I've seen you mentor people, and I've been a recipient of your mentorship, and I think that's one of the challenges that I have seen is the lack of mentors, right? Really good managers, really good leaders get so caught up in the just the business of business that it's easy for them to lose sight of the people piece of it. And it becomes very transactional versus building that culture and developing that culture. And I asked many young leaders when I was interviewing them for the next role is, what have you done to prepare yourself for this role? And sadly, too many of them, felt that, well, I just show up every day. That's preparing for it. It's far more than that, right? It's about the growing. It's about the striving. It's about setting a standard that challenges you, but also living in grace and extending that grace to your team that's around you. So, and I know we said an hour and we're really coming up to the end of it, but I just want to ask you, what legacy do you want to leave, both personally and professionally? What do you want people to remember about Larry Kerr?
I would hope they would say that I loved other people.
Yeah.
And that I would take time to help them grow.
Yeah.
I, yeah, that he loved art.
Yeah.
And he's certain.
Yeah. Well, I'll say from my experience that definitely is your legacy with me for sure. So, and we'll close with one more thing because I know you love challenging people. If you could issue a challenge, just one challenge to our listeners this week, what would you challenge them with? And make it a hard one.
Don't be afraid. Strive to carve out quiet time every day. To start off with 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And just be calm. I think it's important to read the word, but just be calm and invest in yourself for a firm foundation. And over time, that it'll be non-negotiable for you.
Yeah.
Widen that time. But I think if you'll do that, then you'll be prepared face to day.
No, that's a great challenge. I think you're being generous with the 10 minutes. I have found, especially with a lot of these, everybody is so tied in with their electronics that getting them to quiet down for 30 seconds is a challenge at times. So yeah, I'm with you.
It's okay to have a high expectation.
It is that.
And I will say, Penny and I had the fortunate opportunity to work with young marrieds at church.
Right.
And so I understand the narrow attention span, but don't be afraid to hold a high expectation of yourself and to hold a high expectation of others.
Yeah.
And you have to carve out time. And I want to say one more thing, because you mentioned it. As a leader, we get so busy doing work ourselves. And we don't take time to, I'm going to call it, walk out to the shop floor and observe what's going on. And you need to invert that.
Right.
If you would have asked me, Larry, what's the number one thing you learned when you were the CEO? So you're at a point, right?
Right.
CEO. The number one thing I learned is that my job, I was one person in 500, if you will.
Right.
An estimated 500 people. I was one person. My job was to make sure the other 499 had all the tools to get the job done.
Yeah.
To understand what direction we were going. That was my work.
Right.
I didn't have to do work in the terms of making PowerPoints, analyzing data. I had to make sure that everybody was in the boat, rowing in the same direction. And that's what I'm encouraging people. I'm not telling you not to do work. I'm just telling you, don't make sure that you carve out time to observe, and to listen, to see what's going on. Because when you do that, you'll actually expedite. And you minimize chaos and expedite your decisions.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I've talked to you before about a gentleman I used to work with named Scott Pryor. He and his family owned Pryor Aerospace here in Tulsa. And his thing, my big takeaway from him over the years was no matter what business you're in the people business first. And that's been one of those things I constantly remind myself of. And, and even with, even working with you and working with Jerry, it's putting in those steps, right? And meeting with the people on the floor, understanding who they are, making those personal connections, understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that one of the challenges that I've seen over the years is as leaders, we spend so much time in meetings about other meetings, or creating, laboring through PowerPoint presentations or different things, which are necessary for the communication piece of it. But when 95% of your time is there or more, it makes it really hard to do the real job of leading people. So, all right. Well, I'm into your time now. So I do appreciate you, coming on and having this conversation with us, because I think you bring a lot of wisdom and experience to the table that I personally have gleaned from you over the years, but even today, right? Some new things and notes that I'm making for myself here, and that challenge to push and step into that next level in the season that I'm in. But I do want to give you the opportunity to, any closing comments that you would like to make, and who knows how many people are going to listen to this, but if it's just one, it's worth hearing.
Yeah, I thank you, Michael. I'm really proud of the work that you're doing and the message that you're sharing with others to help others get better. I just encourage the people that you are good. Don't always strive for excellence.
Yeah.
Don't settle. It's okay to have high expectations, but at the same time, it's about progress, not perfection. So you have to forgive yourself a little bit just to keep getting better.
Yeah.
But walk forward. Just go. Just.
No, that's good. Can you end it with your go with your throwing your hand out in front of you? Right?
Go, go, go.
There we go. Yeah, I use that one from you and giddy up go all the time. So, no, I do appreciate you, Larry, and thank Penny for allowing us to have a little over an hour of your time today. And until we talk again, I wish you all the absolute very best. Actually, before you go, can we pray? Okay. All right, Father, I thank you for Larry and Penny and their family. I thank you for just the wisdom you have given them. I thank you for your love that you show forth, from their lives. Thank you for the work that they are doing and for blessing it. Thank you for allowing them to be your messengers, to be your voice, to be your hands and your feet and your eyes and your ears and your voice sometimes, Lord. And just be with them, lead them and guide them. Bless their family, bless all their extended families. Just help them to be safe, help them to be healthy, help them to be whole. Let your name be glorified through them. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. All right. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for joining us on Lead Well, Live Whole. If this added value to your journey, share it with a friend and subscribe. Until next time, lead those you serve well and live your life whole.